Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Dallas Social Toastmasters. Today is August 26th of 2021. We have a slightly unusual meeting tonight in that we are going to be demoing some contest speeches. We have some people who are going to contest, and as a result, they would like to get some practice in. Just as a note, these are recorded. This recording will be delayed because this is practices for the speech contest. Normally, they do not get posted until after the contests, so that no contestant from another club is able to see exactly what our contestants are presenting. So just be aware of that. We've got everybody with roles tonight. I think everybody's been on Zoom for a little while, but let me just refresh a couple of things real quick. Most of you are going to be on a PC or Mac, and you've got little icons at the top of people. If you put your cursor up into their box, you will also see, I'm sorry, I can't do anything about that. Lovely. If I could go on mute, except I'm the one who's talking. Anyway, in the little boxes, you will see ... A couple of things in there that are interesting. The most important one is pin. If you happen to be a speaker tonight, you may pin the timer so that you have the ability to see your timer on the screen at all times. That's probably the most interesting one. And then, of course, you can unpin them. You also have over on the right-hand side, typically a way of muting yourself. And for most people, if you are on mute and just hit your space bar and hold your space bar down, it'll take you off mute temporarily to answer a question. And then the moment you let it go, you'll be back on mute. At least that works for a lot of people. PCs, I can't say for Macs for sure. All right, that is going to be most of it. I'm going to try to keep most people on mute most of the time, just so that we have silence during most of the meeting. With that, let me go ahead and introduce how we get to our agenda. First of all, this is our, oops, go back over there. This is our website, DallasSocialToastmasters.com. If you go to that site, you will find that it is divided into 3 columns. The third column is the member section, and in the member section, the first link is current agenda. Clicking on current agenda will bring up in a separate tab or window this particular agenda, which is tonight's. Feel free to do that and follow along with the proceedings tonight. And we try to always have that up, at least by the meeting, if not a little bit beforehand. With that, I think I am pretty much done with what I need to do. I will turn the meeting over to John Vessels to do the invocation and pledge and get our meeting started. John.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Dallas Social Toastmasters. Another Thursday night in cyberspace. So tonight, I want us to thank first of all the things that we've got good going for us for the week and keeping everybody happy and safe for another week until the next time we meet. So y'all all be good, be careful. And now I'd like to go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If Marco put up his, or Rob, can you show your flag or not? Not today? Okay. Well, here we go.
No pledge if there's no flag. That's disrespectful.
Thank you. Anything else? All right. So tonight's meeting theme is first principle thinking. Now, first principle thinking is thinking like a scientist. It's a way of going about approaching a problem or a new adventure and breaking it down to do it correctly. This is what a lot of big scientists use. Elon Musk uses it, things like that. That's the way a lot of innovators get forward in their career because they think differently than we do. Now, I know all of us believe that we are logical and data-driven when making our decisions and when we think through problems. But in a lot of cases, we are not. We make our decisions based on the version of reality that we live in or that we consider part of ourselves. And so when approaching a problem, a lot of times we start with the limitations, the iterations of how we can improve a task. We explore available solutions that we currently have, and we look back and determine what to build. Now, That's our kind of standard thinking. In first principles thinking, we need to start with the possibilities. We need to not look at the limitations. We need to look at the possibilities that we can approach. We need to define a completely new path or how we want to deal with everything. We need to look for the fundamental truth, peel the problem down to the first or the smallest components and what we know is truth and reality. And then we look into the future and figure out what we need or how we're going to handle a situation or what our goal is for the resolution of this problem. So those are kind of a different way of thinking. We need to look at the beginning and not just make assumptions about what's going on and actually looking deeper into the past. Like when I'm at work, a lot of people call me and tell me that such and such is going on and this is wrong. And before I even answer the question, I mean, a lot of them already know the answer because I know what the system's doing. But I go back and check everything else before I make my final decision to make sure that I've got all the proper information I need before I deal with an issue. Even though I'm probably still right in the first place, because like I know how my system works, I still go back and double check everything else before I come in and say, it's this. All right. So we're going to talk about first principle thinking here in another couple of minutes. I'd like to introduce our duty holders for this evening. And our duty holders tonight are going to be having certain responsibilities, and I'm going to go through the list and let them tell you what their job is. And we're going to go ahead and start with our timer, which is Rob Giles. So Rob, will you explain the role of the timer, sir?
Thank you very much, Mr. Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters, welcome guests. As timer, I will be helping the speakers practice expressing a thought within a specific time. My duty during this meeting is to time recorded or prepared speeches, table topic speeches, and speech evaluations. The green card or background, and let me pull that up here for you, I'll show it, is going to be, or it indicates the minimum goal time. And it's going to look like, okay, it's going to look like this. And the yellow card, yellow background, I should say, indicates the target goal time. And the red card indicates the maximum goal time, at which point when you see this, you'll have 30 seconds to finish up. For a 5 to 7 minute speech, I'll show the green card or green background at 5 minutes. I will show the yellow background at 6 minutes, the red background at 7 minutes. And at that point, as I mentioned, the speaker will have 30 seconds to finish up. There is going to be a 3 to 5 minute speech. For that one, the green card will be shown at 3 minutes, the yellow card at 4 minutes, and the red card at 5 minutes. Again, 30 seconds to finish up in order to qualify. For table topics, each speaker is encouraged to speak for 1 to 2 minutes. I will show the green card, or I should say background, at 1 minute, the yellow background at 1 minute and 30 seconds, and the red background at 2 minutes. Again, speakers will have 30 seconds to wrap up once they get that red card. And evaluators have 2 to 3 minutes. The green background will be shown at 2 minutes, yellow background at 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and the red background at 3 minutes. Again, 30 seconds to wrap it up at that point. If you speak under or over time by more than 30 seconds, you will be disqualified and will not be eligible for awards. However, for table topics, you must reach at least 1 minute. There's no grace for going under. You have to reach 1 minute in order to qualify. I will report qualifying times when called upon throughout the meeting. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Rob. Our next duty holder this evening is going to be Dagan Newland, and he is the odd counter. So will you explain your role, sir?
All right, thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. So my duty as odd counter is to keep track of the crutch words like he knows that I'm so famously known for doing, and like the so's, us, and things like that. Filler words or even long, pregnant pauses. I'll keep track of that throughout the meeting and give my report. at the end of the meeting when called upon by the general evaluator. Back to you, Toastmaster.
Thank you, Dagan. Our next duty holder after that is going to be our posture monitor, and that's going to be Mark Schroeder. So Mark, will you explain what the posture monitor is looking for?
Certainly, I would be happy to. So the posture monitor is looking for any gesture or facial expression or anything that I see that does not match your message or enhance your message. Generally speaking, there would be something that you were doing with your hands or maybe pacing, which of course we're not going to be pacing since we're sitting tonight, but it's going to be something that you're doing that will distract me from the message that you're trying to convey. What I'm going to do is make a note of any posture that I see that does not contribute to enhancing your message, and I will prepare a report per person of what I see toward the end of the meeting. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mark. Our next duty holder is Tom Torici, and he is our vote counter. So Tom, will you explain what the vote counter job is, please, sir?
Thank you very much. I'll be happy to. So as vote counter, I will count the votes that are sent to me through private chat since we're virtual this week. This week, you'll be voting for best speaker between Karen and Mark, best table topic speaker, best evaluator between John, Dagan, Mark, and the best of the big three, John, Justin, or Lee. I will record the winner in each category. I won't vote except in the case of a tie, in which case I'll cast the tie-breaking vote. But however, I won't announce if there was a tie. Please remember to vote by sending me a message by private chat, and I'll announce the winners at the end of the meeting. You may also, and we encourage you to do this, you may also send comments to each speaker, evaluator, table topics participant, and there again, please do so by private chat. Thanks very much. Back to you, John.
Thank you, Tom. And the last but not least is the grammarian, and I'll be the grammarian tonight. And the grammarian's job is to listen to all the speakers tonight and look for good uses and bad uses of the English language. Also, I will introduce the word of the day, which the word of the day is, oops, I'll turn that off, is fugitive. And fugitive is somebody that, okay, here we go. Fugitive is somebody that runs to avoid capture or consequences. Now, when you doing table topics this evening, you'll want to use fugitive as the word of the day to qualify for a ribbon. Also, try to fit it into any of your other speaking roles tonight, and then we'll be good to go. All right. Now, something else about first principle thinking. When you go to first principle thinking, a child is the first perfect first principle thinker. That's the only way they know how to think when they're young. That's when I know they drive their parents nuts with, why is the sky blue? Why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do that? They're working from no experience and no preconceived notions. So they always start with why, and they want to know why something works and how it works. And as first principle thinking, that's kind of what you want to do. You want to tear down a problem or a situation down to its basic components and analyze why something is like that and go to the basic truth. And that way you can work from a new perspective, probably, because like we talked about earlier, we have all our preconceived notions we live with all the time now, and that influences everything that we do in our life. Okay, I'd like to move on to our prepared speakers this evening. And so I have listed in the agenda to start with Karen. Now, Karen, can you give me a confirmation that your time is 3 to 5 minutes, or is your 5 to 7? Unmute yourself, please.
5 to 7.
Okay, you are 5 to 7. All right, I got it right. I was kind of thinking I maybe flipped it in the wrong order. So Karen's speech tonight is called COVID Hospital Humor. And it's 5 to 7 minutes. And so, well, let's all welcome Karen Lee. COVID Hospital Humor. COVID Hospital Humor, Karen Lee.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and honored guests. On July 17th, I was here at home during the middle of the night, and I knew that I was ill. During the night, a lot of things happened. I want to tell you that I was very, very clumsy. I knew in the middle of the night that I needed to go to the hospital. And I started preparing to go to the hospital. I packed my carry-on bag, and my carry-on bag opens like a book. And I had it by the front door. And next to it was my backpack. I was putting something into my suitcase, and I lost my balance. And I fell backwards into the window. And my left hand, I realized when I fell over my suitcase, and I even said the words, I wish I had not have done this. I looked down at my left hand, and my hand was bleeding profusely. I had put my hand into the window and broken the window. So I had a dark red sweater, the color of blood, yes, and I wrapped my hand in that sweater, held it above my head, and I went to get all my first aid supplies. I had blood all over the floor, all over the inside of my suitcase. So I cleaned myself up, and I carefully wrapped my hand after I had cleaned everything up, taped myself up, and I called for a ride to the hospital. I took Uber to the emergency room. I checked myself in, told them why I was there, and I waited. Many hours went by. Finally, I saw the doctor and the nurses, told them why I thought I needed to be there. They took all kinds of blood and did their thing that they needed to do, and I just waited. Sometimes I would go back and forth from the room where I was to the waiting room and wait some more. And just when I thought that I wasn't going to need to be at the hospital, I found out that, or realized that when the hospital staff dropped an IV in my arm, that I wasn't going anywhere. I wish that I could have run away like a fugitive, but I was told I was being admitted. So if I go to 3rd floor, main hospital, Presbyterian, and I get welcomed by the nurses and the nurse aides, and here I am, and they set me up in the room, and in no time flat, I see about 6 different doctors. And I had a nephrologist, which is a kidney specialist, PhD, MD in my room. And then I saw 2 residents in my room. And I'm not used to all this attention. And I soon found out that my sodium level had plummeted to 120 milligrams per deciliter. And here I was. This was considered a severe sodium deficiency. So one of the medications that I was taking was discontinued. And I found out that I just needed to breathe, start to breathe so I could get some oxygen into my system and be able to contemplate what was going on. I was told that I was going to need to always call to get someone to take me to the bathroom. And I was not used to that. So we went from the evening nurse over to the next shift, and then the night nurse came on. And I began to realize I was told I was going to have my sodium checked every 2 hours on the hour. And I was awakened every 2 hours to get my sodium level checked. I had been consuming too much water or fluids, so I was also placed on a fluid restriction. And then I found out that I, at some point, would need fluid. They would put fluid through the IVs. And then at some point, I would need it to be restricted. So it went up and down. Then we did the fluid restrictions. And then at the end, I found out that there was another medication that I was weaned off of during the time I was in the hospital. I was there from the 17th to the 21st. And like I said, I wish I could have run away, but there was no way I could run. I was in the bed for those days. But I'm happy to say that I found out that I do have to limit the amount of fluids that I take in so that my sodium levels are normal. And at least during that time, I found out there were some medications that I didn't need anymore. But in conclusion, I was able to joke with the staff, and I told them that they would come in every 2 hours, and I would say, just take me. And they would laugh, and I would laugh. But there's times when I decided that, hey, just breathe, take a deep breath. Everything's going to be okay. Back to you, Mr. Toastmasters.
Thank you, Karen. Because I can get off of mute. Thank you very much. Our next speaker for this evening is going to be Mark Sims. And Mark Sims is doing a 3 to 5 minute speech. And his speech is going to be worst day ever at work. So let's introduce Mark Sims, worst day ever at work. Mark Sims.
My first day back at work was last week because, like a lot of people, I've been working at home during COVID since March of 2020. And I was ready. I was excited. Couldn't wait to see the guys in person again, the joking around, the hand slaps, just having a good time. First morning back, it started bad. My access badge to the building didn't work. I tried to sneak in behind a stranger, but security caught me and they were about to haul me away. A few coworkers interceded to vouch for me, but not before they took a picture of me in handcuffs. So bad start. I walk into the building and my office, and it's blistering. Air conditioning's off and we're in shirts and ties. But I go to the break room where there's always a refrigerator with lots of cold drinks, lots of cold snacks. The refrigerator was gone. It had been taken out during COVID. Well, I keep going. I went to my cubicle, my home base at work, and it looked the same. So I'm happy, I'm settling in. And I see my good friend Jerry in the cubicle next to me. I mean, we are close, we are tight. We started at work the same day there 10 years ago. We've coached each other through all these crises. But he was accepting a cake that said, "We'll miss you." I said, "Hey, Jerry, what's up?" And he said, "Mike, Martin, no, Mark, what's up?" He said, "Oh, I'm taking another job. Bye." And that was kind of abrupt, so maybe we weren't all that close. But then Andy from 2 cubicles down came in, and he's always complaining about his difficult drive from Frisco to our office in Arlington. So I started teasing him since I had moved to Arlington a couple of years ago. At that second, on the loudspeaker announcement that we're going to have a meeting about our office move from Arlington to Frisco. Everyone pointed at me and laughed. So I'm embarrassed. Well, I started to work, and I had been out the week before. So I had 387 emails in my inbox, marked urgent. And I finally responded to the one that said, "Justify your salary for the year 2022 because it's budget time is going to be coming up." And just before I sent off that email, my computer crashed and I lost everything. So I'm beyond frustrated. I go to lunch, and there's a nice deli in the building that we're in. Great hamburgers, great desserts. I go there, and a sign on the door says closed permanently. I asked some guy who's walking by, "Hey, what's up?" And the smart aleck told me that if buildings or offices, businesses were closing, and if I would go on the internet once in a while, I'd figure that out. So I found lunch, went back to work, and I'm getting stressed. I look so forward to coming back to work, but we have meetings coming up, emails piling up. But then a supervisor came by and said, "Hey, Mark, the big guy wants to see you're up for promotion." Now, the big guy is our CEO. He's a loudmouth, foul-mouthed, vulgar person with a cutting wit. You normally don't ever want to see him, but he was nice. He said, "Hey, great job during the offsite work. You did better than anyone else." And he gave me a promotion. And I've been in charge of the sales department. He says, I'm going to be in charge of the new product department. And I said, "Okay, he's going to take over my old job." He says, "Oh, you'll do both." So I'm sputtering. I said, "That's 100 hours a month or a week of work." And he said, "I'll handle it." But then he says, "Now we're going to take care of you." And he told me my raise. I left the meeting a minute later, and someone said, "Mark, how did it go?" And I said, "That chief's giving me a 10-cent an hour raise for doubling my work, and I'm going to punch the big guy in the nose." She turned pale. The big guy was right behind me. He was holding a $10,000 bonus check he was going to give me, which he ripped up. He called security. I'm escorted out, and it was a work at work. Sorry, I went back in the first place, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. 2 good speeches tonight. Please consider this, because when we're going to do evaluations, we're going to go round robin and go around the room and let everybody tell both Karen and Mark what they thought of their speeches. Yes, Dagan?
I have a question. What are the contests for? Where are they going for?
Okay.
Humor speeches or?
Mark is humor speeches. Sorry. Karen is humor speeches. Mark is tall tales.
Okay.
Yeah, mine was not true.
It wasn't?
Greatly exaggerated.
All right. There we go. Okay. Couple more things about first principle thinking. I want to say is so when you approach problems or you're trying to get something new. Oh, I'm sorry. What was the timer's report, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Both speakers qualified on time. Karen qualified at 7 minutes and 23 seconds, so kind of cutting it close. And Mark Sims qualified at 5 minutes and 8 seconds.
Thanks, sir. So Mac, what on first thing thinking. So when you approach problems or trying to build something new or going to a new path, break your issues down into the smallest common denominators and try to figure out what's true and what's good and what can you improve on. Look, don't make assumptions. Don't stick with what everybody else has told you will work or won't work. Figure it out for yourself and start from there. A really interesting solution or analogy to this is the Romans have been carrying leather bags since Roman ages to carry their supplies and their clothing and their suitcases. They toted everything around in leather bags. Do you know that the wheeled cart was not invented until the wheeled suitcase was not invented until 1970, because nobody thought about, well, why don't we stop, put the bag on the chariot or put the bag in the wagon and let it carry it, until finally this guy, let me see, his name is, I'm probably losing now, Broward, in 1970 saw luggage carriers pushing a wheeled cart around with luggage on it. So he decided, why don't we just put the wheels on the luggage? Sometimes you just have to look at an issue on its own in a different way than anybody else does, and you can make improvements and make life better for yourself and, hey, for everybody else. I love my wheeled suitcase. All right. And now I'd like us to move on to the second portion of our meeting tonight, which is table topics. Now our table topics host this evening is Justin Faust. So Justin, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. So, first, principle thinking. When I think about this, I think about schooling and my middle school principal, right? My middle school principal made a very big impact on me. He encouraged me to make good grades. He encouraged me to do well in school. And I was wondering, Tom, what principal in your schooling influenced you positively?
Principal, I don't believe, to be honest, if I think really hard about it, I don't think I was ever influenced heavily by any principal, by any school principal that I had. I've had a number of marvelous teachers who had profound influence on me. And I've read a study that shows that the impact, the difference that an extraordinarily good teacher makes as compared to an average or a poor teacher is really, really phenomenal. And I've been fortunate to have, along the course of my education, especially at pivotal parts, extraordinarily talented and inspiring educators, teachers, a couple spots along the way. But as I think back about it, when I think on elementary school, middle school, which is, I think, pretty uniformly horrible, high school, the principals that I knew were either intimidating or non-existent. The only principal that I know of that that was really effective, and I would say I admired and had a strong degree of affection for, was actually the principal at my kids' elementary school. Unfortunately, I was a little old to re-enroll in elementary school, so I did not benefit much from the interactions there. But anyway, back to you, Mr. Topics Master.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Tom. That was very insightful. Good teachers do definitely make a big difference. So, speaking of school and schooling, sticking on the topic, in school, my favorite subject was always history. I enjoyed world history. I enjoyed learning about different subjects, different time periods, war times. So what is your favorite subject in school, Rob?
Would somebody be gracious enough to time me, please?
Yes, I can. Give me 1 second.
If he can't, I can get there.
I'm there.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Topic Master. Thinking back in school and the different subjects that I took, and I'm thinking more so high school. High school always had very big emotional moments, and so there's a lot of connections there that I still have in my mind thinking back. And although I was what I consider to be good at math, and I love math, ultimately my favorite, I say subject, and I want to say class, but it was government. And this was during my senior year in high school. And the reason that I loved it was the teacher. Very impactful. When you walked through that door, you didn't feel like you had to be a fugitive and take off at the end of the class. The thing that I really loved was he made the class fun. There was even one time when everybody was walking in and he's at the door standing there, just trying to be all friendly, and he's singing a song. And it went accordingly to a commercial that had been back in the 80s, which was Miller Time. So he was sitting there at the door singing, "Welcome to Miller Time. It's all yours and it's all mine." So he was singing that as we're walking through, and we're thinking, this guy is crazy. But everybody loved his class, and it was a very competitive class among all of our classmates. And we had a great time. He did things like that throughout the year. So that's probably my favorite class thinking back to high school. And although I loved math, that one rises above. Back to you, Mr. Topic Master.
Thank you, Rob. Yeah, it's always enjoyable when teachers can make the class fun and more enjoyable. So I wanted to ask either of our guests, Sophia or Erica, do they want to try a topic?
I'm not ready.
Erica's not ready. So
Yeah, is it okay if I just sit and listen?
yeah, sure. Just kick back, sit back, listen, learn. We're here for you. Okay, so speaking of music, in middle school and high school, I was on the band and jazz band. I played the trombone. I enjoyed it. I love jazz band. I love marching band. I just love the entire music theory. I love playing. It was very enjoyable for me as a high school student. And I wanted to ask Dagan, what was your favorite elective in high school?
Well, I have to really think about that one. I know in middle school, I'm gonna go back to middle school real quick. In middle school, we had wood shop, and I guess that was partially one of the reasons why I like doing woodworking nowadays is from wood shop from middle school. But when it comes to high school, I'm going to revert and answer that prior question that I actually like science. I was actually really good at science, and also helped that the teacher was pretty cool, and he always got everybody involved with the science, and teaching the students how to do things in the I guess proper way. So science is, I know it's not elective, but it's probably my favorite class in high school. And when it comes to I don't want to, I'm trying to be a fugitive in that answer to this question. So But as an elective, I don't know. I don't remember call any electives that I took other than PE. I guess I know they call it PE these days, but yeah, PE is probably the worst thing I do because I always hate exercising. But yeah, for my best class would have been science, and that's actually when I was taking chemistry is my senior year. So yeah, that was awesome. So that's my best class. Back to you, tabletop master.
Thank you, Dagan. I also enjoyed science. I enjoyed biology in high school, though I took it in college and I didn't enjoy it as much. It was nowhere near as fun. But moving on, one part of schooling and learning is working in groups. I remember I worked in a group in college with microeconomics. We analyzed and presented a group project on legalization. And it was really enjoyable. We all worked together. We created a PowerPoint. It was a lot of fun. We also made an A, of course. So I wanted to ask Mark Schroeder, can you tell me a time where you enjoyed working on a project, a group project in school?
The time that I enjoyed working on a group project in school. I can certainly tell you some times that I worked on group projects. I don't know that I can tell you a time that I enjoyed it. It's probably why I ended up in the role that I ended up with as a job as much more of an individual contributor, because some of the others, they did not go perhaps as desired. There were a couple of projects in particular. They were programming projects because I was a computer programming major going through as a computer science. And the projects were they were a little bit too big to do all by yourself. That was the point, and the whole goal was to learn how to work together on a project and coordinate on a project. What I found was, for good or bad, I seem to be contributing a lot more than the average person on that project. And it was getting very difficult to get everything done on time. Even had a discussion with the professor that was teaching it. And I said, it's not going really well. And I'm having to do most of this stuff. And he just said, yeah, I know who's on your project. I know how much you're having to do compared to everybody else. Don't worry about it. If you don't get it finished, it's going to be okay. So I've had some group projects, but the difficult problem was always pulling work out of other people and getting them to contribute to an equal level, at least at school. You know, the work environment I've been in has been entirely different, and it's been wonderful because the work environment, everybody has been self-motivated, they've been competent. They're not the kind of people that'll sit there and just read the paper or do something or be on Facebook. They want to get the work done, and they want to do it quickly. So all of my good experience with projects has come from work, but unfortunately none from school. Every one of those people might as well have been a fugitive on the project as far as I were concerned. They were never to be seen. Mr. Tabletop Master.
Thank you, Mark. It is very difficult to work with unmotivated or lazy people on projects. It's definitely a pain. Definitely a stressor. Speaking of stressors and pains, I had several subjects in college that were definitely stressful. My friends definitely struggled with it. We had a class in college called econometrics for economic students. And I did not do very well on the first exam. I made it 62. Pretty bad. But I did better and better throughout the course. And actually I made an A- in the course. So I wanted to know, Lee King, tell me about a course you struggled in at first, but then you turned it around and made a good grade.
The one class that I truly wish that perhaps I could have been a fugitive from, but no mercy, would be that of women's psychology. So, as some of y'all know, I went to Texas Women's University, majored in chasing and dating women, and minored in therapy. I'm sorry, it was the other way around, kind of, sort of. But nonetheless, I did actually have to take a women's psychology course. And if you can only imagine, for those of you that are guys out there, it's pretty stressful. I don't know that you can really prepare for that type of class, and I'm not really sure that there's much that you can relate to. Now, with that being said, on the flip side, if you're a female on here, I would imagine that you trying to take a male psychology course would probably give you the same kind of distress. But nevertheless, I did learn some interesting information about women's psychology. I did actually end up learning a little bit of stuff that I did not know as far as overall women's health. So I do feel like I'm a stronger person because of that. I think that I can relate to my female patients a little bit better when they're in different phases of life and different types of stress. Although, with that said, did it ultimately help me meet my end goal, which was that perhaps I would go into that class single and walk out with a girlfriend? That did not quite happen, but nevertheless, it was a very interesting course. And yeah, if I had to take it again, I would consider taking it again. Back to you, Mr. Tabletop Master.
Thank you, Lee King. That was very, very insightful. So that concludes our topics. And I will go to Rob with the timers report.
Mr. Topic Master, all contestants qualified on time. Individual contestants, if you are interested in finding out exactly what your time was, go ahead and shoot me a private chat and I will respond.
That is fantastic. Grammarian, John, word
Hey.
of the day.
Okay. Rob, did you use it?
Yes, he did.
He did? Okay, cool. And Tom, did you use it? Because I didn't remember hearing it from you.
I did not. I totally blanked on it.
Okay. Yeah, and I forgot to hang up the sign to help you remember too. So sorry. So Lee, Rob, Dagan, and Mark all used fugitive. So there you go.
Okay, thank you. So we will vote. Send your, who is the vote counter?
Vote counter is going to be Tom Turkey.
Yes. So send a private message to Tom. Let me just briefly go over what the contestants talked about. So Tom talked about good teachers, how principals didn't influence him, but good teachers did. Rob talked about his favorite subject was government because he had a very good government teacher. They're fun, they sang, Miller time. Dagan talked about his favorite subject was woodshop and science. Mark discussed difficulties working with people in groups in college and school, but he did have success at his job. And Lee King talked about women's psychology and chasing women at his college.
And while we're listening, I forgot to call for a vote for our speakers. So please make your vote for who you thought did the best job with their speaking tonight, Mark Sims or Karen Lee. Thank you, Justin.
And send those
All right.
votes, of course, as well to Tom Turkey.
All right, and we will now move into the general evaluation portion of the meeting. And for that, we are doing the round robin evaluations for our two speakers. So I will just start at one corner of my screen and work my way through. I would just like each person to guests, you're more than welcome to join us if you'd like. If not, that's fine if you would feel more comfortable passing. I'll give everybody the opportunity to speak to each of our two speakers. I would like for each person to just mention one thing that they thought the speaker did well, one thing that they could work on, and go ahead and just do both speeches at the same time. I think this will help move us through a little bit quicker. So we'll start with Rob. Rob, will you please tell each speaker one thing that they did well and one thing that they might want to consider working on between now and contest?
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. Yes, Karen, I think that you had some good points with good vocal variety. I would recommend make it more dramatic. Bring in some strong gestures to accentuate everything. Mark Sims, I thought you had good gestures and points and chronological timeline. I would perhaps just keep practicing to fine tune your timing a little bit. Overall, great for both of them. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
All right, let's hear from Justin.
Yes, Karen, good speech. I like your use of visualizations, like when you held up your left hand that was bleeding. I think that was a good use. I'm not sure if that was a true story or not. I thought it was real. I'm like, wow, this is pretty believable. And I'm not sure if it was supposed to be funny or not. Like, this sounds pretty sad. Like, this is pretty depressing.
Okay, yes, it was a true story. And I did, yes, it's a very true story. I didn't make it up.
Okay, well, I'm sorry to hear that. Mark, your speech was hilarious. It was pretty funny. Good use of, good use of emphasizing what was happening and use of your hands. That was pretty good. And yeah, I thought it was pretty funny. So good job, Mark.
All right, let's hear from Mark Schroeder.
All right, let me start with you, Karen. With regard to the speech, I thought you had a good flow to the speech. You seem to have it pretty well in mind, to the point that there were no significant gaps or delays as you were going through it. So that was good. Flowed really well. I'm actually going to do a couple of things to think about. One of which is the sodium of 220. Tell us what that really means. 220 seems okay to me. What's it supposed to be? Tell us how far off the scale you were and how that should have put you flat on your face, something to that effect. And the other thing is the same thing kind of that Rob was talking about with regard to better gestures. You had a lot of places where you were just with hands clasped. So think about where in that speech you can more effectively use gestures. Let's see, Mark Sims. First of all, Mark, this is obviously a tall tales. I thought you did a very good job of lies and exaggeration. That's important. The lies and exaggeration are what this speech is all about. Excelled at that. I think you've probably pushed that farther than most of the people have in this club before, so that was good. One thing that I noticed to work on, it's perhaps, I don't know whether it has happened as you've been practicing or not. Maybe you've just gotten used to a word order that causes you to say this by accident. But when you said $100 a month, and then you had to go back $100 an hour or a week or whatever it was. But you started off with, there was a raise of $100 a month, and then you came back. So
Thank you.
just be careful to, if it is something that you've managed to get ingrained by doing it wrong once or twice, or you think of it the other way. If you think of it as per month, then make the number bigger. If you think of it as per week or per hour, then that's fine. Just keep them consistent, whichever one is easier on your memory. That's it for now.
I meant to use a ridiculously low raise for extra work, but yeah, if I misspoke, that takes away a lot from it. Thank you.
All right, let's hear from Dagan.
All right. So overall, Karen, I like your speech. You know, you're taking a true story, true story, and trying to make it humorous. But that's when I talk about the improvement part, to make it a little bit more humorous on a COVID story. You know, like when you talked about when the sodium levels are down, he said, well, why can't I just take down a cup of salt or something like that? Or when you have to adjust your intake on liquids, well, I'm not gonna know when I'm gonna need to go pee or how often, make a little funny quotes like that to make kind of humor it up some more. Mark, overall, I really like the speech. Each individual story had, because some of them I thought would be kind of plausible. It's like you're doing an email and your computer crashes. That is kind of plausible, but of course it is a lie, because the whole thing was a lie. But overall, it is tall tales, and that's what we want, and it's very enjoyable. But I like to see maybe put a little more enthusiasm into your voice. So overall, both great speeches. Back to you, Lee.
All right, great. And John?
All right, cool. Yeah, both good speeches. Karen, I would like to have heard some more COVID humor, because it's COVID hospital humor. If we can make, some more comments about that, maybe it'd work up in a humorous COVID situation. I know that's kind of crazy, but anyway, but something about, they were like taking my temperature every hour. They kept sticking that probe up my nose to make sure I didn't get COVID or something. I didn't have COVID. I didn't test positive. And like doing that every 2 hours, that would be a pain. Something like that maybe would do it. Also, no, you're okay. Also, Mark, what like Dagan said, maybe your computer blew up and started blowing smoke out of it or something like that when you started having, those exaggerated moments do something really out there. Like, my computer just started smoking and just went black, things like that. Maybe something you could like stick like that there or something. But overall, y'all both did a good job. Thank you.
All right. And Tom?
Thanks. Karen, one of the things that you did that I really liked was that you stood up and stood back from the camera, from the monitor, so that we could see you. I thought that was particularly effective. I thought that when I would emphasize the feedback, I think maybe Rob, maybe Mark, somebody else, or a couple others that gave that for giving hand gestures or body language, you could go further with it. I agreed with that. However, I thought in some of the places that you did do that, you did very well, like holding your hand up. I think there's an opportunity. One of the elements of humor is overstatement. And so for body language or body humor, there's an opportunity for things like that. If you're giving a humorous speech, to really go over the top and hold it up. And then, I don't know, maybe you pull a muscle in your rib cage holding it up. I don't know. But anyway, so those are my thoughts on yours. Mark Sims, I appreciated yours as well. I thought you did a good job of capturing the general idea of worst day ever, which is something that we've all experienced. One of the elements of humor is understatement. And I thought a thing you might think about is a punchline to just really drive it home. If there's something at the very end of the day that could happen that's really minor, that could really set you off, that could, dwarf all of that stuff. Maybe on the way home, you go by Starbucks and they're out of cafe mocha frappuccino, or I don't know, something silly and minor like that, because you built it up with lots of really bad things happening, and then to drive it home with a punchline that's really minor might be humorous. Those are my thoughts on yours, but overall, good job.
Do either one of our guests have anything that they would like to add? Okay, I'll go ahead and jump back in here and just make a couple of comments. Mark, I think that Mark Sims, very good speech, very good, definitely tall tale. I would just try to use a little more hand gestures throughout your speech. I think there was definitely some missed opportunities there, so perhaps consider that. Karen, very good, humorous speech. I didn't actually hear anything about COVID in your speech at all. I think probably the easiest way to fix that, in all honesty, is to just change the title. You have the speech down pretty well. I think that trying to add in extra humor as far as COVID goes might be a little bit challenging. And I really, in all honesty, not really sure how the judges would take that, especially given the fact that have politicized COVID to the point that they have. People are not happy that we're going back to Zoom and all of that. That's not to say that you can't make light of it. I think that you certainly can. I would be very careful on how you do it, which is just why I'm thinking that the time that you have left to prepare, you might just do better just changing the title and sticking with what you have. Other than that, I will now go on to the general evaluation portion of the meeting. This is just where we will discuss what went well, what we can work on in the future. Meeting started on time, very good theme, very good table topics, fed right in with the rest of the theme. So really good with that. Appropriate amount of questions. The only thing that I'd really suggest, well, the only thing that I really would want to, I guess, mention is that as we go back virtual, it is important to remember flag etiquette, which would mean that in order to say the Pledge of Allegiance, you do need to have a flag present. It is not supposed to be an electronic one, so you can't just come up with a PowerPoint and throw a PowerPoint of a flag up. It needs to be an actual flag. If no one has a flag, then we just don't do the Pledge of Allegiance that night. So I just kind of noticed that as we've gone virtual, we've kind of gotten into some bad habits, which is why I stepped in earlier. Other than that, though, very good meeting. And if we could go ahead and get our duty holder reports at this time, I believe our grammarian for this evening is John Vessel. So, John, if you could please give your report.
All right, thank you, everybody. All the language and grammar and everything what we're having tonight was all very good. I didn't hear any major faux pas. I did we had a lot of, or not a lot, some lees. Profusely, Karen talked about how much she was bleeding, and she was bleeding profusely, so that's always a good adjective. Rob talked about incredibly, so we're all a bit extreme tonight. Mark talked about his blistering heat in the hospital. There's no Lee on there, but that's beside the point. So all good words and interesting. Karen, you stuck fugitive, the word of the day, into your speech. That was good tonight too. I liked Mark punched the big guy in the nose. I thought that was interesting. And I thought that was a good little phrase, although I'm not advocating violence, but it still is cute. Back to you, Lee.
All right, next we have our all counter Dagan.
I don't really have much to say. I didn't really hear anything really out there, except of course I don't know what I said. I'm sure I had a few knows here and there, but other than that, I think everybody did a really good job tonight. Back to you, Lee.
Thank you. Mark Schroeder, you are our posture monitor. Will you please share your report with us?
Certainly be happy to. Have some, not a whole lot, but I do have some. Obviously, posture we don't get to see a lot of because of the cropped nature of our performances tonight. first I'll start with John. What was interesting with John was at no time did my hands leave my wrists. It was one of these kind of things and the hands just disappear because he had the background on. And it's like, they're there, they're not, they're there, they're not. So nothing in particular you can do about it, but it was just, it was interesting. Since I was posture monitor, I happened to notice it. Karen, as you started your speech, the only thing that I really noticed that was distracting was taking the steps back and then removing your glasses. You had actually already started your speech. Remember that and get into position, remove your glasses before you say the first word. If you need to do that again, being online. Let's see, I also noticed in a much more minor way, you said at one point, it was, oh, I wasn't going anywhere. Sorry, my handwriting is particularly atrocious tonight. I wasn't going anywhere. But what you said was at the time was something like, I wasn't going anywhere, and put your hands together in a fit of desperate, what looked like and felt like a fit of desperation, and it was well timed. I thought that was done very well. Other than that, I already remarked about the fact that in many cases you had your hands clasped either loosely or together, a little bit too much for my taste during the speech. So try to find something else to do with your hands, because you had your hands up most of the time. They were rarely down. Mark Sims, of course, the hand slap. I like the hand slap one. That was good. And managed to keep that on camera. So that's a little tougher to gauge on Zoom, but you did a good job of doing that. Tom, head gestures. You have got some really expressive head gestures that are very good and animated. And in particular, one of the things that I think you use well is you use the forward and back a little bit to emphasize your points pretty well. When you're trying to make a point, you tend to lean in and lean forward. And that is more likely to get our attention than when you're leaning back in between points. So that's a good one. Let's see, Rob, as always, probably the most gestures of all of us. You are very consistent in keeping your hands high where we can see them. And I thought every one of them was effectively used. The one that you do, you use the pointing one more than anybody else, and you're not pointing at us. So you're just pointing off into space, which is just fine. Lee, we don't see a lot of gestures from you, but the one thing that we do see is we see facial expressions. And in particular tonight, I don't know, there's just something about when you were doing the humor with the dating versus the psychology classes, the smile on your face said it all. So that was just a very effective smile. When you're doing self-deprecating humor, one of the things you have to do is give people permission to laugh at you as well as with you. And the smile does that. If you do it completely deadpan, they don't know if you're serious and about to slit your wrists or not. So I thought that was very, very helpful. And so let's see, Dagan, got you with beard play a couple of times, particularly about the time that the camera came on you. So it's something that you don't do as much once you've been on camera for a moment, but it's something that you do as you go on camera. So watch for that. And Tom, the one that I noticed was noticing neck play. You were stroking your neck during one of your answers. That concludes what I saw as a posture monitor.
All right, great. At this point, I will call for a vote of the best of the big three, which would be our Toastmaster, John Vessels, our Table Topics Master, Justin Faust, and myself, Lee King. Please take a moment to vote for the person that you felt did the best with their role for this evening, and send your vote privately over to Tom. We'll now move into the business portion of the meeting. We do have two guests this evening. Just like to hear from our guests. How'd you find us? What brings you to Toastmasters? And what'd you think about the meeting? We'll start with Erica. Erica, are you there?
Erica, you're on mute.
Hi. So yeah, I'm babysitting right now. My nephew is making a lot of noise. That's why I'm totally not ready. But I really did enjoy tonight's meeting. It's my first time. And I've been like, it's been on my to-do list for years to like check out a Toastmasters meeting. So I'm really excited. And yeah, I definitely will come back. And I really enjoyed like all the feedback that you guys gave. So yeah, thanks for that. It's nice to be in this, like supportive environment.
No, thank you. Next, Sophie, would you please share your thoughts on the meeting?
Yeah, like Erica, I've also been wanting to join Toastmasters for a while. And I thought the meeting was interesting. And I also enjoyed how you guys gave feedback that wasn't like really harsh and it was supportive. And it was also kind of funny. So yeah, I'll definitely be coming back as well. And I'm excited to actually get more involved.
All right, thank you. For the benefit of our guests, just so you know, we did attempt in-person meetings. I think that we were actually one of the very few in district clubs in District 50 that has done any face-to-face meetings since the pandemic started. And when the county went back to red, we really felt like it would be best to move back virtual for
Yeah,
now.
just quickly, we actually did a kind of a survey of clubs within about 10 or 15 miles, and there are 40 or 50 clubs, and only 4 or 5, including us, actually attempted in person within a radius of where we are. There are some further out in the suburbs, but not in the middle of Dallas.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah. So our goal, and I'm sure every club's goal, is to get back in person as quickly as we can, but we just gotta work with what we got. So the next thing that I want to mention is that the speakers from tonight will compete in the area contest, which will be on Saturday, September the 11th. I know Rob will be looking for more help for that contest, so please reach out to him if you're available on that day, in that morning, that you can spare a few hours and help out at the contest. Also, dues are due. However, we will be having another meeting this Sunday, and I'm not sure which time works best. Is 7:30 or 8 o'clock better? For anybody can join. Obviously, we need the officers. We will pretty much just be discussing that one issue. I think that for the most part, everybody's in agreement that as long as the county is red, we're going to stay virtual. Mainly what we need to do is just talk about the dues, because we have reduced dues when we have been virtual because we don't have to pay rent. Obviously, we need to give some thought to how we want to handle dues. We don't know how long we'll be virtual. We do know, though, that people would be eligible to start getting that third booster shot on September the 20th, which perhaps maybe our thinking might change. Maybe the county will still be red, but if everybody's had an opportunity to get the booster, maybe more people would feel comfortable going ahead and trying in person after that third booster. So a lot to give a thought to. Certainly, if you're not an officer and you want to join us in the meeting and you have thoughts, we would welcome that as well. Fun.
Lee, Lee,
Yes.
on the question is clarify on the time of the meeting. Is it from 7:30 to 8 or is it 7:30 or 8?
That's what I was going to ask. Can I see a show of hands who wants to have it at 7:30? Got 1, 2, okay, 3.
What are we voting on?
Oh, just a time, either 7:30 or 8. So if you want
the meeting?
For an
Yeah,
officers
on-
meeting.
Oh, the
Yeah.
officer.
on Sunday, on
Okay.
Sunday night. Yeah. So again, let me see a show of hands for 7:30. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Well,
Rob's
four-
shaking his head.
okay. Then it looks like
It doesn't,
we'll do
I don't care
7:30.
either way.
Okay.
Oh.
All right. Well, we'll do 7:30. So just Mark will send out the link again, and we'll do that. Other than that, the only other thing is Rob, I think, had a few announcements or awards he wanted to present. So we'll do that and then just move into our vote counter.
Thank you very much, Lee. Appreciate it. I'm going to share my screen. I want to, and maybe I think I need to close some of this because I know last time. Okay, so we go through our Toastmaster education journey and we reach milestones. And I want to bring up a few milestones from a few of our members that they've reached over the past at least couple months. And I would like for you to help me to join in giving them airwaves for applause as we get to them. So I'm going to go through the list now. First person is Karen Lee. Of course, in our old education program, she reached advanced communicator bronze level. But with her new pathway certificate awarded on August 9th, 2021, she reached level 1 competence for team collaboration. So please go ahead and give a round of applause for Karen for that. There's her certificate. Congratulations, Karen. Our next member is Justin Faust. Justin is fairly new to Toastmasters. So he's only been in Pathways education program. And with this particular Pathway certificate awarded on August 6th, 2021, he has reached level 1 for innovative planning. So please give a round of applause for Justin for his successful completion of level 1 in innovative planning. Here's his certificate as well. Congratulations, Justin. Our next member that I want to recognize is John Vessels. And had to do a little roundabout way to get to this because we weren't sure exactly if all of the projects were completed, but he actually ended up completing this. But prior to Pathways, John reached the advanced communicator silver level in the old education program. But with this particular new Pathway certificate, which was awarded on August 20th, 2021, John has reached level 3 of visionary communication. So he's competent at level 3 for visionary communication. Please give a round of applause for John. Here is his certificate of completion. Congratulations, John. And the last person that I want to recognize this evening is our club president, Mr. Lee King. Lee is a distinguished Toastmaster squared from our old education program, and he is working hard in the new one. He has already completed the path for strategic relationships, so he's certified in that. And with this new pathway certificate, which was awarded on August 20th, 2021, Lee has reached presentation mastery path level 2. Please give a round of applause for Lee for reaching that milestone. And here is Lee's certificate. Congratulations, Lee. Congratulations to all of our members and all of the members who are striving to reach these goals. Great job. You're great examples for the rest of us. Keep moving, keep pushing hard, and soon all of us will become distinguished Toastmasters similar to Lee. All right, back to you, Mr. President.
Okay, let's go ahead and get a vote counters report for this evening. Tom, I think you're muted. Tom, you're muted.
For Best Speaker, the leading vote getter, our winner this evening is Mark Sims. For Best Table Topic Speaker, the winner is Mark Schroeder. And for Best of the Big Three, the winner was Justin.
All right.
Congratulations to all very much. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
All right, and with that, the meeting is adjourned. Have a good night.
All right, this is your Zoom coordinator. Just a quick note to our guests. A lot of us stick around after the meeting. We'll be happy to talk to you as a guest and answer any other questions that you have. We'd love to get a chance to meet you. I will be stopping the meeting recording in just a moment. Okay, stopping the meeting in 3, 2,